before we get started in this video, Bungie released the TWAB today, and it buffed a lot of the stuff in said build video, so let's go over that. Burning Maul buffed damage by 25% in PvE. Roaring Flames added a behavior. While Roaring Flames is active, your uncharged melee attack now deals solar damage and applies 30 scorched attacks to targets hit, increased to 40 with Ember of Ashes. And they gave Consecration 2 fragments instead of 1. You can literally run whatever you want in that fragment slot. You know, I recorded all this stuff yesterday, released the TWAB today, yada yada yada, etc, etc. So let's just get on with the video, and I hope everybody enjoys. How's it going, guys? And welcome back to another week and another Destiny 2 build video. This week, we're going to be taking a pass at the Titans and a more definitely melee-focused build, as, you know, that's been kind of the thing between the melee build and the Loreley Splendor build, which is the only two that I've realistically seen this season. I had one in mind that I wanted to do, but because they disabled one of the Embers that I really wanted to use with it, we're going to have to wait on the next time around with the Titans to make that build that I'm actually really excited to make. It's probably going to be one of my favorites. But with that being said, you know, like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let's get right into this build. First thing we're going to look at is our class setup, which we're going to be using the Burning Maul as our super, as we're going to be, you know, up close and personal, which will activate the exotic armor we're using, increasing our damage of our super. First thing we're going to look at is Roaring Flames. Final blows with solar abilities or ignitions increase the damage of your solar abilities, stacks 3 times. We want to stack as much ability damage as we can to boost mostly our melee damage, because we're also going to be using Consecration. While sliding, activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets in front of you as you leap in the air. While airborne, activate your charged melee again to slam to the ground and create a second, larger wave of damaging solar energy. If the wave hits a scorched target, they ignite. This is a very fun and cool melee option, and with Roaring Flames and our exotic armor, we're going to boost the damage of this ability by a fair bit. The first fragment we're looking at is Ember of Searing. Defeating scorched targets grants melee energy. We'll be scorching plenty of targets, so this will help us get our melee back in order to do the hammer slam as often as we can, because it uses our entire melee. Even if we are using, you know, the throwing hammer, there's nothing to pick up after we do the Consecration. Therefore, in which we have to use stuff to get our melee back a little faster. Second fragment, Ember of Wonder. Rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions generates an orb of power, gives us that plus 10 resilience. If done right, the hammer slam can make, you know, a few orbs. The most I've seen is like 2 or 3, but that's more than enough. As long as, you know, you hit the same targets up and down, causing that first wave to scorch, that second wave to ignite, and defeating the targets. Also, getting a plus 10 in resilience is fantastic due to the fact that Bungie has changed the way resilience works, giving you resistance. Therefore, which, you know, makes you a little harder to kill. Last fragment we're going to look at is Ember of Eruption. Your solar ignitions have increased area of effect, plus 10 strength. When we ignite those targets, you know, this will make it so that it has a larger area of effect. In turn, hopefully, you know, being able to make more orbs for us to feed into our super or whatever other orb, you know, consuming things you're using. Now, our exotic we're going to be using with this build is SYNTHOCEPS, which comes with the exotic perk Biotic Enhancements. Increased melee lunge distance, improved melee, and super damage when you are surrounded. We're really going to be taking advantage of that second part, as this will increase the damage of our Burning Maul, our Throwing Hammer, as well as our Consecration Hammer Slam. The Throwing Hammer as well as the Slam will both be increased further by Roaring Flames. This is realistically the only exotic you need for this build. In the background footage, you're going to see that I was using Monte Carlo, and that was mostly so I could get my melee charge back, so I could showcase the melee more, you know, since it is a video based around said melee. But you realistically do not need Monte Carlo unless you really want to just hammer slam every single enemy you see. So with the class setup being explained, let's move on to look at the armor, and then, you know, a few little extra here and there pieces that I added, or I'm going to add in the future to make this build feel even, you know, just a little bit better. First on this list is going to be Radiant Light. Casting your super causes nearby allies to become charged with light. Plus 20 strength. The plus 20 strength is what I'm trying to get at here, as my Titan is a little lacking in the strength department. You only get the plus 20 strength when you pair with another arc mod, whether that be another charged with light, arc mod like Powerful Friends, or another mod in that helmet. So I'm going to also run hands-on with this in order to get our super back faster on melee kills, since this is a melee-based build. As well as adding just a little bit of support to your allies with the, being able to make them charge with light if they're running things like high energy fire or anything that, needs them for orb consumption. Now, for the elemental well part of this build, we're going to be using Melee Wellmaker. Powered melee combatant final blow spawn elemental wells matching your subclass energy type. This is a very, very heavy melee build. I've said it, just a second ago. So let's put put this melee to work by making us wells to feed into other mods, such as Well of Life. Picking up a solar elemental well grants increased regeneration for a short period of time. This build does not use sunspots, which I am sure I will catch a load of shit for, and I'm prepared for that. So to compensate for the lack of survivability that sunspots give us, we're going to be using Well of Life in order to try and keep ourselves alive that little bit extra. The next mod we're going to be feeding is Font of Might. Picking up an elemental well that matches your subclass energy type grants a temporary bonus to weapon damage of that same elemental type. This is a nice 25% bonus to any solar weapons you are using, whether that's your heavy, a shotgun, callus mini tool, for example. Any solar weapon is going to be boosted, even if you use something with osmosis. That will also be boosted by Font of Might. And then finally, we're going to be looking at Bountiful Wells. Elemental well mods you cause to spawn now stack, spawning an additional well for each copy of the mod you have equipped. This is mostly used to get our ability back faster by picking up 2 wells, feeding into our lowest uncharged ability, which, might be your hammer. Well, actually, it's a solar mod, so you're going to be getting all of your ability energy back. So therefore, you're going to be getting energy back just by getting, get a hammer kill. Or, for example, if you get a consecration kill, you eat your melee, and then you are not going to get it back. So therefore, in which, by getting that kill, you're going to spawn 2 of these solar wells, and then you are going to, gobble them up, and then you're going to then be able to get it back just that little bit faster. So a few helpful things that I'm going to either add or I used a little bit in this build is obviously Monte Carlo. I mentioned it earlier. I used it when playing, just so I can make it easier to get some melee charge. If you want to take this into like something like an end game style activity, you obviously can, because we have Overload Auto and Overload SMG again back this season. So you can use Monte Carlo for situations like that. I used a 1-2 punch shotgun as well. As for bosses, this can be used as your regular 1-2 punch hammer throwing build, which I used for some of the bigger targets, shotgun throw. I am not the best at it. I have tried to perfect my Titan melee build, with Synthos before, for one, the whole repetitive just chunking bosses. I am bad at it. I am bad at keeping my roaring flames up and consistently getting 1-2 punch to proc, but obviously there are people out there that are better at it than me. Now, off the artifact, I want to add Classy Restoration to give you that restoration buff when you cast a barricade for that extra survivability, and then I also want to add Solar Fulmination to increase the damage in the radius on our solar ignitions, which is what we're going to be causing a lot of the time with our consecration, with our, our up scorching and our down igniting. We're going to get more effect from solar fulmination out of that, making it more effective and eventually leading to more orb generation for whatever you want to run. But that is the build. I kind of scrambled putting this one together. I literally went through 3 different builds before I decided on this one. I literally went through an Ashen Wakes build, which I can still do if people want. A Hollowfire Heart build, which I decided is very much so not good, only because of Inmost Light doing what it does, but better. and giving it more damage because, in most light, you can still use your super. With Hall of Fire Heart, you have to hold your super. But I can still make that build if you want. I'm trying to avoid an inmost light build because literally it's the only thing anybody ever uses. So I'm trying to avoid that. My build that I'm currently trying to wait for the 7th of June for, which is next Tuesday, that build is going to come and it's going to be very, very good. It's probably one of my favorites that I've ever thought about working on. Warlock builds, they're touchy right now. There's like a handful of exotics I actually like to use, so we'll see about how that goes, which is going to be next week's video. So with that being said, if you like the video, like it, comment with what you want to see down below, and then of course subscribe if you aren't subscribed. It really helps the channel out, really helps me find the motivation to make these videos continually week after week, especially after the negativity around solar and all that other stuff. It hurts when you're trying to make content on stuff that people don't really care for. But with that being said, I will see you all next week.